We finally had some beautiful blue skies and sunshine here this week. For a few days at least, we didn't need raincoats or hoodies. It was delightful. I pretended I had nothing to do and took off for the seacoast for a while to recharge my creative and emotional batteries. All I knew was I needed to be surrounded by life and vitality for a little while. I did what I call a tour de farms, starting at an orchard in a little town called Ipswich. I walked around for a bit, tried to get close enough to the donkeys, but they were too busy munching, and the tall fence around them kept them out of arm's reach. I visited the cows in the barn and said hi to the mammoth pigs before making my way to a bench in front of the pond. It was harder than I thought. I was restless. There was a mallard duck a few feet away from me. I almost missed him because he was snuggled up into himself, his head tucked deep into his colorful feathers. He seemed to be sound asleep in his self-made feathery canopy. The sunshine danced and glistened across the surface of the pond. The harder it is to do this, I told myself, the more you need it. Illness and death loom where I live. My sister and I tag team with the caregiving of my father, who will have turned 88 by the time you read this. I type that with some reluctance because every day is uncertain and tentative at best. We have almost lost him a few times in recent months. We know that the time is near. But with his TBI and dementia, he forgets how aware we are. He does not realize we are dealing with anticipatory grief every day. He feels the need to remind us, I'm not going to live much longer. It's so hard to know, do we play along or do we let him know that we are well aware? And every time he says that, our hearts rip open a little more. As I often said when my mom was dying years ago, there is no playbook for this time of life. We learn as we go. Everyone is different, and it must be handled differently. Some people have been kind to offer tips and advice as to how they had to manage everything with their parent. But my dad is not their parent, and we are not them. I cannot imagine how hard it is for my dad. He must feel like he is between not two worlds, but three. There's the one where he is semi-cognizant and fights his decaying body, dares to venture outside and sit in the sun. Or he has me take him for an ice cream or breakfast. He fights us, and he fights the inevitable end of his life in this earthly realm. Then there is the other world, where he wants to just check out because he can't stand the way his life is now and how his body is failing him. The man who spent decades behind pulpits and on radio, who knew his way around a sound mixer and was second in command at a radio studio, now has a hard time with my 2-button electric water kettle and a 1-button toaster. I don't want to go out anymore, he tells me. I assure him I understand, and he is under no pressure to do anything at all. We will take it one moment at a time. And thirdly, there is the world where mentally he is already gone and reunited with the Creator, my mom, and everyone that he has lost in his lifetime. At least there, he is no longer heartbroken about what he cannot do now. My sister, whose love and care can only be described as saintly, and whose patience is nothing short of divine, does everything for him. If there was a way she could think for him, she would. But she gets as close to that as she can. On his worst day, she is a therapist, CNA, and nurse all at the same time, swallowing her tears as she tends to him. As an empath, I feel it all. My own heartbreak lies under the surface as I watch him fail and her prolong the inevitable. It can only go on so long. I often say that it's much like living in a hospice house some days. Behind closed doors, I let my own tears fall, collect myself, and get back into networking and coaching, writing stories that empower and inspire. Being intentional about guarding my own emotions, my energy, and yet being open and vulnerable to share with trusted loved ones is a balancing act. And finding that balance is a work in progress. There have been many moments that I asked myself, like many practitioners do, how can you do what you do or say that you can help anyone else when your own life feels so out of control? I used to let that beat me up. Not now. Why? Living in this environment forces me to flex my own muscles of resilience and strength. Feeling joyful and happy when I'm with a client or on a networking call isn't inauthentic. It is me embodying who I am outside of the perceived reality. Reality, like the brain, is not fixed. Neuroplasticity is a fairly new term that speaks to how the brain can change and grow at any age. Dr. Daniel Amen was one of the first practitioners I know to speak of this. I highly recommend any of his books. Neuroscience and quantum science both work together to help create, change, or reinforce the reality that we experience. What I'm describing is not woo-woo or witchcraft. This is backed by both neuroscience and quantum physics. Electrons respond when they are observed. This is known as the observer effect. In my mind's eye, every day, multiple times a day, I transport myself out of now, this timeline, and into another. I see it all in as vivid detail as I can, and then I enhance that picture further. I anchor in the feeling of already being there with powerful emotions. I don't use any modalities in coaching that I haven't first experienced myself, and these are exercises I do daily. I must. It is a continual process of dismantling limiting beliefs and creating new neural pathways that support my desired reality. Can you think of more of an incentive to flex this muscle than living in an environment that resembles a hospice house? I cannot. The other imperative piece of this process I described is taking inspired action, focused action. It isn't enough to wish and hope. As the biblical saying goes, faith without works, action, is dead. This could not be more true than in the mindset that it's necessary to create big things in one's life. When the doubts try to come in, and they do try, I pull out my anchors and switch back into that peaceful, excited emotion of already being where I want to be. The visualizations, anchoring, taking action, and believing wholeheartedly without doubt all result result in amazing outcomes and in the most unexpected ways. I do not know what your daily life looks like, but what I do know is that wishing and praying that something changes somehow will not get you where you want to go. Again, using myself as an example, the timeline I want to live in has me on a large piece of property with a home of my own that doubles as a retreat center. It's in a beautiful part of New Hampshire, close to both water and deep in the woods. I have at least one golden retriever, and the land is also home to several farm animals, and it's peppered with gardens and several health and healing amenities for guests. I'm already making mental preparations for all of this land, and I'm meeting more people every day that I believe are going to be involved in some way with the creation of this oasis. I am not sharing all the details here because this vision is still fragile yet. There are very few people in my life with whom I've shared it. I will say this for now. There is a much bigger vision behind this, and it is what keeps me moving forward on my worst and darkest day. I do not waver in the belief that this will happen. I am acting as if, and embodying the qualities of the person I have to become to do all of this. I believe it is the way I'm going to make the impact I'm destined to make. It all has to do with creating places and systems that elevate humanity and promote transformational health and healing. You have no idea how big a stretch or flex it is for me to be submitting pieces to magazines, showing up on podcasts with some regularity, getting in front of a camera or microphone. I do not want to be the center of attention, but to do what is in my heart requires me to step up, be edgy, lean into fear, and transmute fear into inspired action. Courage is not the absence of fear. It is action in the face of it. In coaching with people over the years, I have been honored to be the first that a client confides in about their wildest dream. It is one of the most enjoyable parts of the relationship. Not everyone comes to coaching because they need it. Sometimes it is because they simply want the support, and I'm happy to give it. What is in your heart as a wild dream? What makes it wild? The idea that it's impossible? Or the impact you know it will have if you pull it off? Spoiler alert, you can do it. I believe in you. Go for it. You are a co-creator. Everything is in your reach. Perhaps the path will not appear when or where you think it may, but there's still a way. In fact, there will be multiple ways the more open-minded you are as to what's possible. Believe and then act. And if you want some support, I'm here for you.